You're listening to ArTEEtude, a podcast with artists created and produced by Detlef Schlich, a visual artist and ritual designer, living and loving in West Cork, and best known for his essay about the cause and effect of shamanism, art and digital culture. Working in the field of performance, photography, painting, sound, installations, and film, he will dive and discover with us and a weekly creative guest into the unknown and exciting deep ocean of the creative mind.
This is Detlef Schlich, and today we dive into the deep and unknown, exciting ocean of the creative mind, together with the legend of Californian modern art and punk rock, Cliff Roman. Hi, Cliff.
I did. I would not a legendary artist or California artist.
But it's that's what you told me in the last episodes.
I said I'm often referred to, and this is true, by just random people who are fans of the Weirdos. They go, "Man, you're a legend. You're legendary. You don't know how legendary you are." And so, Cliff Roman, legendary LA punk rock musician.
I mean, I'm a little bit disappointed.
And part of the legend was that I'm in the Weirdos for a few years, and then I just kind of disappeared. I became a math teacher for like almost 30 years. So we're
gonna go to that later in the next episode.
So that's probably why the legendary or thing is a little more fitting.
I mean, I'm so disappointed because I'm not entitled anymore to call him the Godfather of Californian punk rock.
You can call me whatever you want, but no one ever calls me the Godfather. I've never made an offer you can't refuse.
Yeah.
To anybody.
I mean, you have to listen now to the neutron bomb, and I give you $1 million. No, you give me $1 million if I play you the song for you. What we will hear later on as well from Cliff, a couple of songs played live with his guitar. But I think first of all we gonna go a little bit. I mean, last week we found out how they came together, how they became the Weirdos, and the inspirations of the Weirdos, of Cliff's music, what was he listened to, and as well his other band members. It's very interesting. Thank you for that. It was really nice to get known about things like this. For me, it's great. You see, I mean, I try to imagine how it was in the 70s. I mean, I'm a couple of years younger than you. How it was in the 70s in California, and especially if I tell you people. So I have now a podcast with Cliff Roman. So he used to be the founder member of the Weirdos, which is a California punk rock band. They say, "What? California has punk rock? I can't imagine that." Because punk rock is considered actually to London and to New York, maybe to Germany now as well, but not to California.
L.A. and the West Coast. West Coast had a very amazing scene.
Yeah,
one of the
greatest
punk rock scenes ever.
And I mean,
incredible.
And you guys influenced as well Flea from Red Hot Chili Peppers, didn't you?
Yeah. He used to come watch our shows, and he actually recorded with us, played bass with the Weirdos.
Yeah.
He used to sit there on the side of the stage, just kind of watching us do our shows. Yeah.
So he was as well. He's, I think, still in his 50s, isn't he? 50s, 60s, or something like this. Late 50s. So he was actually he learned bass playing through you guys as well, then probably, or better.
Oh no,
bass
he's like a very unique bass player. I remember, in fact, he lived nearby me. I didn't know him at the time, but I remember one morning I'm like taking a walk in the neighborhood, and here comes this kid with a shaved head walking down the street on his way to Fairfax High School, which was right in my neighborhood. And he's like, well, this kid's like walking down the street thumping a bass, you know, and I'm like, you know, he walks by me, you know, he goes, hey man, and he walks by me.
Yeah.
And it was Flea, because he went to Fairfax High, and I remember telling him about that. He goes, oh yeah, when I used to practice on my way walking to school, so I didn't waste any time.
That's cool. Yeah, so very enthusiastic, isn't it? So you were surrounded by really lovely creative people.
Oh
at this time.
A lot.
Which is great. Yeah.
Musicians, actors, photographers, writers, artists, graphic artists.
Yeah, like as well, like, and you met Debbie in California, so you both speaking French over there, and I mean you probably will tell the listeners as well how that happened.
Yeah, Debbie Scow, who you interviewed a few weeks ago.
The show when she appeared. So actually, so we're gonna go into your shows already, don't we? In
1977, early 1977, we're rehearsing. Yeah. So I've got myself, my friend John Denny, who I knew from high school. We went to North Hollywood High School together. His brother Dix Denny on guitar, John on vocals, me on guitar, rhythm guitar. And then a friend of mine, Dave Trout, who I knew from Cal Arts, going to Cal Arts. And I wrote some songs. Dave wrote a few songs. John and I collaborated on a song or two. So we had a set of about 8 songs. And I told the guys, I said, let's rehearse once or twice a week. And we put a set together with the 8 songs. And I said, let's just put a set together in case we ever do a show. Now, doing a show anywhere in Hollywood and in the clubs, you know, there was the Whiskey A Go-Go, the Roxy, the Starwood, and then there were a bunch of discos. They were just discos, right? It was disco music back then. And so, you know, if you wanted to see rock music, usually you would go to the Starwood, the Whiskey, and the Roxy.
How many people fit in?
Clubs.
How many?
They were all small clubs, you know, like 300 people. You know, they were small.
Yeah.
So, and intimate. And, you know, I've been going, we always went and saw bands. We saw, you know, I talked about that in the last segment. You know, we saw the New York Dolls, Iggy and the Stooges, and the Ramones. We saw other bands, you know, Blondie came into town.
Tubes as well?
We didn't see the Tubes. I never saw the Tubes, but they were playing around
White Punks on Dope.
Yeah.
White Punks on Dope.
Right. And then, but, you know.
Did you see Nina Hagen?
Later on. But she was not in L.A. in this period. This is 1977. So early 1977, like, you know, January, February, March, we're rehearsing. We're having a good time. And we're getting, and I would record. I had a nice tape recorder. I'd set it up. And we had this little studio called Full Moon. And it was on the corner of Sunset Boulevard and Gower. And it was actually upstairs above one of the sound stages of Gower Studios. They also called it Gower Gulch. And so we're in there rehearsing one day. This is like probably late March of 1977. And what we did is we would take, I would put my amp, we would set my amp, Dix's amp, and David's amp. We'd set them up so that if it made a wall, and we would stand in front of this wall of speakers, like just one stack, one wall of speakers. Yeah. And we would you know, we would sort of line up and we would just play the set without stopping. And we would just do it over and over again, right? Yeah. And we'd play full volume. I would come home, my ears would be ringing.
Oh, God. And you still don't have a tinnitus?
No. Maybe a little, but not so bad. So we're one day we're in there, we're rehearsing. I turn on the tape recorder. We run through the set.
Yeah.
We finish the set, and there's a knock on the door, and it just opens, and in walk these three guys. Yeah. And I knew who they were. They were this band called The Nerves.
The Nerves.
They just walk in. A band called The Nerves.
Right. Okay.
Now, I knew who they were because I had bought their record, because I saw an ad for their record and a description, and it interested me. I thought, God, I want to hear them. And I forget what the description was, but, it was like, we play a raw brand of rock. I don't know. It just sounded interesting. So I got a money order, put it in an envelope, addressed it, because that's what you had to do those days. You couldn't go online and order it, and lick the stamp and mail it, and then the record came, The Nerves, and it was really good. I think I had 3 tracks on it. I was like, wow, that's really good. Okay. So they walk in, I go, hey, are you guys The Nerves? They go, yeah. I go, I have your record. They're like, oh, cool. Yeah. And they're like, you guys sound great. What's the name of your band? And I'm like, we're called The Weirdos. And they go, The Weirdos? That's a great name. Yeah. And then they said, well, we just heard your set. We were downstairs, and we saw there was a studio here, and we just came up to check it out, and we could hear you guys playing. And then they're like looking around, they're looking at our setup, and they go, wait a second, where's the drummer? We heard a drummer. When we were standing outside listening to you guys, we could hear a drummer. And
that
we're like,
was
there's
a
no
washing
drummer.
machine.
No, it was just because our music, I mean, just the way we played our music, you probably sounded like there was a drummer. You had to, because it was like a steady rhythm. 1, 2, 3, 4, do 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 do. So maybe there was a drummer. They
the bass maybe was
kick and snare.
Yeah.
So and so our music was very based,
very dynamic,
fast,
very energetic.
We played fast songs, and it was on the 8th note and the downstroke. We called it the downstroke. And so it was like a style we developed amongst the 4 of us, kind of. And so they're like, that's cool. You don't have a drummer and you're called the Weirdos? They said, listen, we're doing a show next Friday and Saturday. We're doing 2 nights. It didn't end up being 2 nights. It ended up being 1 night, but that's what they told us. And we want you guys on the bill, and you could be second billed to us, because you guys are like real exciting. You're the Weirdos. Cool. And we were like, well, wait, no, we need a drummer. And we had been like auditioning drummers, trying to find a drummer. In fact, we ran an ad,
which is very difficult. We ran an ad.
We put together a flyer, and we went around, and we had this flyer going around town in various places where musicians would be.
Wanted drummer.
So, Weirdos, punk rock drummer, and there's my phone number. Call.
Yeah. Do we still have this phone number?
587329. No, that's my number in Hollywood.
All right. So dear listeners, it doesn't make sense to call him now anymore on that.
So what's funny about this poster? This drummer saw this, and it scared him, and he ended up being our drummer a few years later. His name was Cliff Martinez. He's in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Is he?
Martinez. Yes.
He is?
Yes. He played with the Red Hot Chili Peppers, and when they got inducted, they included him. So, anyways, he told me that story. After he was one of our last drummers, and he said, I saw this. I remember looking.
But he's not in the Hall of ArTEEtude, you see.
No, he's not. But I am.
Yeah.
And you. But so then we agree to do the show.
Yeah.
So they walk out, and I turn off the tape recorder. I have this whole conversation on cassette tape. I still have it. Yeah. And so we meet the guys, and one of the Nerves is this musician named Peter Case. And Peter, lovely guy, very nice, has made a great career as a songwriter, singer-songwriter, and he was eventually in a band called the Plimsouls that had a huge hit. The Plimsouls, called A Million Miles Away. And it was a big hit also on MTV. When MTV was out, because they did a video for it. Anyways, and they were kind of a big players in the early scene, the Nerves and Peter Case in the early scene of LA punk. But they were from San Francisco. So now we're all set up. In 1 week we have our first show. We don't have a drummer. We try out a couple guys. Nothing works.
So how long did you guys play together? Oh, 1 week? No.
Up until this point, we had about maybe a dozen or so rehearsals. Up until this point.
Okay, so the same like us. That reminds me really from us.
So I go home and I'm like, I go to work the next day. I worked with Dave Trout. He was Dave Trout, and I worked at a company, a clothing company, and we were in the art department. So we could silk screen, we could photograph stuff. We could make collages and make a stat from it that we could reproduce.
I mean, that was very handy.
So here's our flyer for our very first show, and if you look at it, it says Real Punk Rock.
Weirdos, Punk Rock,
Hollywood's Real Punk Rock. And it shows 5 people, but there was only 4 of us. And I guess I wanted to make sure people, if they were interested in punk rock, which wasn't being thrown, that term wasn't being thrown around a whole lot back then. There was no punk rock scene. But
there was no punk rock scene in California.
In LA, well, there might have been. There was one in San Francisco that started in '76. But anyway, so we're playing, and the Nerves called. They said we're going to call it the Punk Palace or the Hollywood Punk Palace, and we were like, okay. And there's like 3 other bands on the bill, but we made this bill, and we didn't end up using it because it says April 1st and 2nd, and they call us up and they go, we're just going to do the 2nd. And so that was like, April 2nd, 2022 was 45 years ago. So this is 45 years ago.
45 years ago.
Yeah.
Wow. Unbelievable.
So we show up for the show. Now, we had to get a look together. So we sort of we weren't sure what to do, but we wanted to look cool, right?
Yeah.
We wanted to look different and cool. I went and got to one of these T-shirt places that was down the street, and I picked out an image of Peter Frampton, who had the biggest selling record in the world. So we were sort of like about the opposite of that, right? We were like more. We were just like, we got nothing to lose. We're self-taught. We're writing our own stuff. We're not virtuosos, right? Yeah. We can play the chords, the 3 chords, and put some energy in our songs. That's what it was all about. And some humor in our lyrics. And maybe say something, make a statement about things. And so I had the shirt made of Peter Frampton, and then I got some orange fluorescent spray paint, and I sprayed an orange X over his image, and that was my shirt.
You like your X's,
yeah. And so then John put together, he painted a shirt with paint and tape and spray paint. Yeah. And Dave Trout had this great outfit too. He had this cool denim and leather jacket that he put together himself. Yeah. And Dix had this jacket, that we painted, because he was just coming along for the ride at this point. He was just all right, whatever. And so we do our first show, and we're on the bill. There's the Nerves, the Weirdos, a band called the Zippers. We're a local rock band. Yeah. A band called the Dills. All right. And a band that drove all the way out from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, called Short Ice. They were like a bar band. So it wasn't like if you look at the lineup that night, really the only punk band was us, the Weirdos, right? And only a few people showed up. Like my girlfriend was there, her brother's girlfriends, a couple of friends of mine from Cal Arts, David's wife, Holly, John, I think John's girlfriend. Just a few people showed up. There weren't a whole lot of people that showed up. And so we do our show, and the plan was when it's our turn on stage, we're going to set up our gear in that wall, just like we did at rehearsal. Yeah. And I said, leave the amps on with the volume full up. So all of us had our amps on with the volume full up. And I said, and we're going to walk out with the chords in our hand and then put them in the amp. So it just makes that ear-piercing sound, electronic glitch sound. Ah, God. And so we walk out. We walk out like we kind of mark. Someone goes, okay, it's the Weirdos. So we walk out. Everyone's like looking at us. We walk out. And I remember there wasn't even really a stage. It was a sound stage. So we weren't up on a stage. We were just on the floor of the sound stage, and everyone's just standing there. So we walk out. Everyone's like looking at us. Okay, what is this going to be like? Because no one had seen us or ever heard of us before. All right. And we plug in
It was your first gig?
First gig. We plug in our chords. There's this loud feedback sound. We turn around and we go right into the first song. So because we had rehearsed the set so many times, we just played right through the set without stopping, and it just came off really good. It sounded really good too. Now we didn't have a drummer, and we thought we were playing fast, but really when I listen to it now, we weren't really playing as fast as we would get later on. We were sort of working up to the a faster kind of tempo in our style, and so we really didn't know what we were doing yet. I mean, at least we could play. Yeah. We were ready to play because we had rehearsed for our first show. That was the whole idea of what we were doing, and here we are.
You'd be nervous.
But we didn't have a drummer, so we thought, what the hell? We're the Weirdos. We'll just play without a drummer. So we do our show, and then after the show, everyone's, man, that was great. You guys were fantastic. And then now the nerves go on, and they're doing their show. Yeah. And so afterwards, a couple people come up to meet us. Someone comes up to me. This woman, this pretty blonde girl. She looked she was very young. Comes up to me, and she's got a camera, and she goes, "I'd like to take your picture." So I get the guys together, and this is Debbie Scow. So she takes her photo.
And Debbie is in one of my former shows in it as well. She's living now.
Episodes 112, 113, and 114, I think.
Wow, right? You have a good.
Yeah. Anyways, so Debbie's there, and she's a photographer for a fanzine that we knew about called Backdoor Man, because I'd already bought a couple issues of it, right? She goes, I work with Backdoor Man. I'd like to take your photo. And then there's a guy with her, and she introduces or he introduces himself. He goes, I'm Fast Freddy. I write for Backdoor Man. I'm a writer, and you guys were fabulous. That's what he said. You guys are just fabulous, the fabulous Weirdos. And they were very excited about the Weirdos, and they'd never seen anything local like us.
Just before. Yeah, I mean, it is amazing, isn't it? Somehow, I mean, you must be proud of that. I mean,
and I have the photo right here too.
To create something new like this, I mean, what is new? But it was somehow new, at least for this area.
Yeah. So I have the photo. I don't know what I did with it.
Yeah. Have you been very nervous as you guys did your first gig?
So we were a little nervous. I can only speak for myself. I mean, I don't remember the other guys talking about being nervous. Yeah. We were sort of ready for it. Like we got there early. Yes. We got there early. We were like dressed up. We took some photos outside. I remember I've lost them over the years, but I wish I still had them. We took some cool photos, and with I used an
Instamatic
camera. Yeah. With the cube, with the flash cube you would put on it.
And Polaroid, something like this, no?
Right. And so Debbie takes this photo of us. It's like the first photo of the Weirdos ever. And then Fast Freddy writes an article about us, and the first line is, "From out of nowhere come the Weirdos." And
that's nice.
He's saying that he wrote a little review of our show, a nice review. And so we finished this show, and then the Nerves go, "That was great. You guys were great. We're going to do another one next week, Friday and Saturday, at this little theater we found on Sunset Boulevard, across the street from it's called the Orpheum on Sunset Boulevard, and it's across the street from Tower Records. Now, Tower Records is where we would go to buy our records. It's a famous record store on Sunset Boulevard. Yeah. And so now, right around this time, bands are starting to come out like Television, Blondie, and the English band The Damned. But the next week, we do a show at the Orpheum Theater. We do 2 nights and 2 shows a night, and we still have no drummer. And what happened was, at our first show, Debbie and Freddie Debbie tells me about a drummer named Nicky Beat, who she thought would be perfect for our band. Yeah. So we get his phone number, but he doesn't. We do our second show still without a drummer. We don't have a drummer, right? We haven't really met Nicky yet. So we do, by the end of, and that was 45 years ago, like just this past Saturday. Yeah. And we're playing, it's the Nerves, the Weirdos, and the Zippers. Yeah. And the Zippers were another really cool local band. They were they had this, a woman or a girl that played bass. Her name was Dee Dee Faye, and who I'm friends with on Facebook now. Yeah. And they were really good. They ended up getting signed by Ray Manzarek, the keyboard player of The Doors. All right. And he produces their their album. So we do the show. So by the end of that Saturday, we have our first set that we did the week before at Gower at the Gower Studio soundstage. That was our first show, and then a week later we do 2 more shows at the Orpheum Theater. Still no drummer, just the 4-piece. But now we have 5 shows under our belt by that point. Wow! Right? So we're feeling like, man, this is
we're making
it, right? But that weekend when we play our second show, there still aren't a lot of people coming to see us, right? Word hadn't got out yet. But Fast Freddy shows up again, but we look really cool because we're in our and it's on. You saw it on my Facebook page. We're like in our painted clothes, and we're sitting on the stairwell.
Yeah, I saw it. Yeah,
we're just
sure, great photos.
We're trying to look as cool as you can in painted clothes, and we were very particular about how we looked. Our pants had to be straight because bell bottoms. Everyone wore bell bottoms, so we had to be the opposite of everything. Everyone had long hair. We had to have short hair. So, because we thought, if we're the Weirdos, we better look a little weird.
We don't want to copy nobody, so
right. And so we do the 2 shows at the Orpheum. And when we're done with that, so that was on the the 8th and 9th of April, 1977. So then the Nerves say, let's do it again next weekend, right? We'll do 2 nights next weekend, same bill. And then they said, we're going to get a band from the San Diego area called the Zeros that sound really cool. We were like, okay, sure. So now, a few days later, we get together with Nicky Beat. He comes over to he plays with us. It sounds fantastic. We're like, wow, we got a drummer now. but he had really long hair, and he was more like rock and roll looking. He goes in my bathroom.
Like a Ramon, actually.
He goes in my bathroom, and he burns his hair off with a cigarette lighter to get it shorter. Yeah,
So he fit in the club.
Yeah, and then he's looking at how we dress, and he shows up. He's like dressed like us. He got it, and we thought he was really good. I mean, we played a song called "The Life of Crime," and he got the groove right away. So now our songs have a groove and they're swinging, right?
Yeah.
And I think I played him. I think he knew about or heard, or I played him the Ramones. He came over to my house, and I was like, "Can you play drums kind of like this guy? He's sort of like just." And he's like, yeah, I could do that. So it's real minimal. But Nicky was like, he would add like brilliant, fills, and he was very dynamic. And he would, and I would suggest drum parts for him, real specific drum parts, and he would like do them. Right?
Cool.
And I was like, oh, that's how I hear it in my head.
That is so great. I miss things like this, honestly. Our drummer always forgot his patterns.
Within a week, we got a drummer. Yeah. And then I see that there's this record store opening called Bomp Records.
Yeah.
And we go down there. It's in North Hollywood, right near where I used to live. And we go down there all dressed up like we're doing a show. We stroll in, and the owner of Bomp Records is this guy named Greg Shaw. Now, Greg Shaw had a magazine that I used to buy called Bomp, and it had great articles. It had articles like one magazine was dedicated to the British invasion. One was on surf music. One was on garage bands.
It's like Rolling Stone.
And it was different than Rolling Stone. It was sort of like, and then you could buy records or used records in the back from people. And Rolling Stone was more mainstream. This was like not mainstream. But the articles,
they were often as well quite political and very eclectic, I would say.
In Rolling Stone, but not in Bomp Records. Bomp was just about music and the bands and their styles.
Okay.
And so I was like really interested to meet him because he was like, now if there's a Godfather of LA punk rock, this Greg Shaw would be more like a Godfather because
you see?
He started a record label, Bomp Records, and he would sign bands, put out records, and he would promote shows, and he would in his magazine promote the scene. So he could make decisions about whether bands would get exposure or not, which was a critical thing. So we meet Greg Shaw, and he's like, oh, I heard about this. Word is spreading. Another way the word is starting to spread about the Weirdos was from Debbie and Fast Freddy from Backdoor Man. They start telling the people they work with. There was another writer named Greg Turner, and who started several bands. That one of them was called the Angry Samoans, and so they're telling people, and people want to come see us now, and so we go down. We go to the opening of Bomp Records, and the other way people were finding out about us was from this radio show called Rodney on the Rocks. Rodney Bingenheimer. Now he's called the mayor of Sunset Strip. That's his thing. But he's also like a Godfather figure because he could like behind the scenes make decisions about whether a band would get played on his show and get exposure. Now, everyone listened to Rodney's show on Sunday night, and he would play the latest records from England and New York, whatever was released.
Like John Peel, so a little bit.
But Rodney was like, and he would come see the bands too.
Yeah.
So I remember one night, my girlfriend, Gracie, she calls him up, and he would take phone calls. And he was like fascinated with Gracie because she's telling him about the Weirdos. Have you heard the band, the Weirdos? So that's how he found out about the Weirdos.
So she manipulated him already.
Right. So that's how it worked. You had to promote yourself. So and we're just back there. Sure. We're like laughing. Every time we'd finish a show, John and I would spend hours. We couldn't sleep we would just like replay it in our heads, like how incredible it was what was happening to us. So so now we have our drummer. We're working on the clothes. We got the look, and we're going to do a show again with the Nerves, the Zippers, and the Zeros. This new band.
Yeah.
So like a day or two before the show, the Nerves call me up and they say we're not doing the show, and the Zippers aren't either. So it's off.
Oh,
and I was like, oh, man. And we had already made a flyer that said Weirdos, that said Nerves, Weirdos, Zippers, Zeros. We already made the flyer and passed it out.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, man. And I said, well, he goes, well, if you want to do the show, just go down there and pay the $90 to reserve the theater. I said, all right.
Okay.
So I go down to the Orpheum Theater. I pay the $90. Now I'm the promoter, right?
Yeah.
I'm the promoter.
Sure.
Right? So I was like, all right, so it's going to be the Weirdos and the Zeros. And so the next day we go down to this Bomp Records store, and we're in there, and we see these people walk in. They look very punk. And there's this one kid, he's got this punk, short, kind of choppy haircut. And he's wearing a T-shirt. It says "The Germs," like a handmade T-shirt.
Yeah.
And he's got a pair of jeans with like 1,000 safety pins in his pants. And we went over. I had to meet him, so I go over. He says, "Yeah, I'm Bobby Pinn, and this is my band, The Germs." And he introduces me to Pat Smear, who's a Hall of Famer, right, for Nirvana and Foo Fighters. He introduces me to Pat Smear.
Who is it?
Pat Smear. He's in the Foo Fighters, and he was in Nirvana, guitarist. So he's in the Germs, Pat Smear, and then he says, "This is our guitarist, Pat Smear. Here's our bass player, this girl, Lorna Doone. And then here's our drummer. I forget the drummer's name, but there was another girl. And so I said, oh, man. I said, you guys look great. And I went over to John and I said, do you see those guys over there? Why don't we get them to play with us at our show? Well, let's add them on the bill. They look cool. They're a band. So without hearing them, I booked the first Germs show. The Germs evenally go on to become one of the most notorious. For you guys. Yeah, as support. But they go on to become one of the most infamous bands, infamous punk bands of the LA scene. So now we've got the Weirdos, the Zeros, who I hear are a punk band from San Diego, never heard them, and the Germs. Now, a promoter usually doesn't do that. A promoter would want to hear the music and then make a decision, or see them.
But there was no time.
At a rehearsal,
There wasn't time.
But I didn't care. I was like, this is going to be like performance art, because that was my background from Cal Arts. David too. We were like performance artists. That's how we sort of envisioned what we were doing. It was like a form of art. It was performance art.
Sure, and, absolutely.
So then now we do the show. On the day of the show, the Germs show up. Now they go on first, and there's hardly anyone has come in the theater yet. And the Germs start playing. They hadn't rehearsed. They had no songs, and they're just they're playing. They're playing, and Bobby's he had written some lyrics, so he's just singing his lyrics. I think he even had the lyrics typed out on a piece of paper, and he was just like singing, And then a friend of theirs. A friend of theirs is there in the audience holding a jar of peanut butter and some salad dressing. Yeah. Right? So she opens up the peanut butter and he starts smearing it on his chest, and the woman the girl that gave him the peanut butter was Belinda Carlisle of the Go-Go's, also now a Hall of Famer.
Yeah. And not in the Hall of ArTEEtude. Not yet.
No, but
not yet.
So Belinda's holding the peanut butter, hands it to Bobby Pinn. His real name is Paul Breen, and so he's about to take the mic and jam it into the peanut butter. Right, the mic belongs to the guy who owns the theater, and who I knew, the guy who ran the theater, I knew from high school. His parents owned the Orpheum Theater. So he comes running down and he says, "You got to get those guys off the stage, or I'm shutting the show down." So we had to stop the germs and say, "Okay, guys, you know." I was enjoying it. I thought it was brilliant, you know. But you know,
hilarious. I love it.
It was just you know. So he kicks them out of the theater.
Yeah, really.
So they're gone.
Wow.
And then the Zeros set up. Now some people are coming in. The Zeros set up, and they are like the coolest band. I mean, they're like these kids. They called them the Mexican Ramones. That's what they were known as, the Mexican Ramones.
Okay.
I never liked that term. I just thought they were just the Zeros, and I knew them all.
Yeah,
they were just kids, and they had the coolest look. They had like skinny jeans, black jeans with pointy shoes, you know, like and heels, and their vocals had, you know, they harmonized, and they had these cool songs, you know, that real antisocial songs, you know, and they looked really cute. Like all the girls were like, you know, their eyes
somehow
were on,
like the glam rock Bee
no,
Gees
they were nothing like
punk.
glam rock. They had more of an image
sure.
like they looked like the Standells or something like that, a band from the '60s, a garage band from the '60s. They had a really cool look. Javier, Hector, Bubba, and so we became friends from that day. The Zeros were like they called us like they thought of us as like their uncles, you know, and they played a bunch of shows with us after that, and they were considered a punk rock band, LA punk rock band from then on. And then the hall's like filling up. I see Rodney Bingenheimer, the guy from the radio show. I see Greg Shaw, the guy from Bomp Magazine and Bomp Records, and he's there. And he told me he would come. And then we see the Svengali of LA punk rock. I don't know, maybe that's the wrong term, but we see this guy named Kim Fowley. Kim Fowley was the manager and producer of the band The Runaways, who were starting to get well known during that time. And they were part of the LA. They're not really considered a LA punk band. They were sort of like, there was a bunch of bands: the Runaways, the Quick, the Motels, the Dogs, the Pop. There was these bands that were sort of like in between the punk rock bands and the glam rock bands. They sort of filled that gap for about a year. And Kim Fowley's there, and he's a producer too. And he produced bands like I think he produced I know he produced the Runaways and the Quick, and I had those albums. I was going to say maybe Sparks. He may have been a producer for a Sparks album. That was another band that filled that gap too. But the Sparks were already like on stage on big shows and everything.
The Russell Brothers, no?
Right.
Yeah.
And anyways, so Kim Fowley's there, and then sitting in the audience is The Damned. Now, I had already bought the Damned album, and we couldn't believe our eyes. The Damned are at our show from England.
Yeah.
They were in town to play the Whiskey. For some reason, that show gets canceled. They come over to our show. They're sitting there with their manager, Jake Rivera. Yeah. And now the theater is filled. There's only like 90 seats. The place is packed.
Cool.
We were introduced by Rodney Bingenheimer. We're introduced by Fast Freddy. He's like the MC. And we play our set with. This is our first show with our drummer, Nicky Beat.
Okay.
And all these key people are in the audience. Also, later on, we meet after the show. We meet a band that we didn't know about, but they're called the Screamers. The Screamers and the Weirdos were like the big punk bands of LA in 1977. So they're in the audience, and writers, other musicians are in the audience. I'm learning afterwards. There's a photographer was there, Jenny Lenz, who took photos, and
not Debbie anymore.
And So there we are. We do our set.
Yeah.
We're getting a lot of, everyone's digging it.
Yeah.
And we finish our set, and then Captain Sensible, the bass player from The Damned, comes backstage. He goes, "Hey, you guys are great, man. I want to play with you guys. Do an encore." So we hadn't planned for an encore. So we go back on stage, and I start playing on my guitar. I knew the riff for the Seed song, "Pushing Too Hard."
Yeah.
And John goes, "You're pushing too hard. You're pushing too hard." And Captain Sensible, we gave him one of our guitars, and I don't know, we found an amp for him, and he's just like, he wasn't even playing along with the song. He was just up there to amuse his bandmates, the other members of The Damned and his manager. Who thought it was amusing. They thought, that's funny. So Captain Sensible's up there, and he's just making a lot of noise on the guitar.
Yeah.
And I have all this recorded, too. I recorded this.
Cool. Great.
And one of these days, I hope to release it. But anyways, so we're playing with Captain Sensible, and then that show made the next day, Greg Shaw calls me up. He goes, "You made history."
Yeah. Wow. That's so cool, Cliff. So and we still didn't. Yeah.
I was going to say, after that show, that's when the LA scene, punk rock scene, all of a sudden starts picking up steam. Because a lot of key people saw that show. They were all there in the room that night. We had our drummer. This is when we actually had our drummer. Yeah. We have the Zeros, a punk band from San Diego. And we have the Germs, the very first Germs show ever.
Yeah.
So it was quite historic.
I would say. A
lot of people told me they were there, they saw that show, and they went and started a band the next day.
I would say so. It's great. So thank you for educating us here with this historical moment. Actually, so thank you very much. It's
sure,
so cool.
You're welcome.
It's great, and we still didn't listen to you now. So we're already on 46 minutes. How are we gonna do that? Shall we gonna play 2 or 3 songs quickly? Yeah. The beginnings just. So we listen to.
Can I take my headphones off?
You can take them off. Right. Yeah. So we listen to Cliff Roman live now a little bit, and the Legend of California.
Here's my, can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah, it's great.
So here's my Vox guitar. This is the guitar I played on the very first show.
Wow. Look here. So, dear listeners, you can see that
Italy.
Next week. Yes. Cool.
Are you ready?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. You can see it.
The thing I like about this guitar, it had a switch right there that says distortion.
Yeah.
Actually, I'm going to put the headphones on.
Yeah, maybe you can hear you better as well. Okay, cool.
All right.
Yeah.
Can you hear that okay?
Yeah.
You want me to turn it louder?
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, that's great. That's great. Cool.
Okay, so this song is called Destroyal Music. It's our first single.
All right.
I'm going to kick in the radio. I'm going to bomb the record store. I say destroy all music. I say you just can't use it. Broke all my records and my stereo. Whipped up my ticket to see yellow. I say destroy all music. I say you just can't use it. Just can't use it. Destroy all music.
Great.
That's just a few verses. All right, now this next one is a very one of our most covered songs. When I go on YouTube, I see like people, I don't know who they are. They're like do covers of this song. It's called "A Life of Crime."
Okay.
Right.
All right.
I don't wanna play around no more. I see that black cross painted on your door. We was good friends for a long, long time. Baby, you got hungry for a life of crime. Get the message now. The car you drive is painted red and gray. But if you ask me to get in, well, I'll just run away. We was good friends for a long, long time. Baby, you got hungry for a life of crime. Get the message now.
Get the message. Yes. Oh, cool. Yeah, Cliff Roman, the legend of Californian punk rock. That's quite cool. The last one, and then we're gonna finish this season, this show. A third one?
Already.
Yeah, sure.
Whatever you want to do.
One more song.
All right. We got the neutron bomb. We got the neutron bomb. Gonna drop it all over the place. You're gonna get it on your face. Foreign aid from the land of the free. But don't blame me. We got the neutron bomb. We got the neutron bomb. We don't know you, don't know what you need. We just want you, we want your machines. United Nations and NATO won't do. It's just the red, white, and blue. We got the neutron bomb. We got the neutron bomb. We don't want it, but we got it anyways. We don't want it, but we got it anyways. We don't want it, we don't want it.
Cool, Cliff. Thank you very much. You really made my day. Great. That was really, really lovely. Great. Dear listeners, I would say we gonna finish this season today, this episode. Was a very long one, but I hope you enjoyed that. if you want to contact Cliff, you can go to Facebook at Cliff Roman or to Instagram at Cliff Roman. If you want to contact me or leaving comments, you can do it on Instagram as well at Detschlich, at ArTEEtude, or at Isle of West Cork Artists, or you become member of the Isle of West Cork Artists on Facebook, and then you can put comments in there as well and then answer. It's a very interactive thing, and Cliff is there too. You can get more information there. You can go to Bandcamp to listen to his songs, buying his records. You can go actually for if you fancy Irish coffee or a Coca-Cola or whiskey with Cliff and myself. You can get the Hall of ArTEEtude Collector's Max on www.arteetude.com, and you can get there as well everything you want. You can support my podcast if you buy then a Mac or whatever. So that was my rant for today. Cliff, thank you very, 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 very much.
Thank you, Dad.
Quite cool.
Fun.
We see us next Sunday, 10 a.m. early confession, and there we're gonna go completely a different subject because that's actually then we're gonna go into the now and into Cliff's time in the year 2022 actually. So be surprised, and Cliff, I see you soon.
See you next week.
Bye.
All right.
Ciao.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Ciao.
You have listened to ArTEEtude, West Cork's first art, fashion and design podcast. ArTEEtude, never so close again. That was too close.